We're now with the Codes Department, and Budget Chair Ronnie Stein is with us. And Terry, if you could introduce yourself and your colleague, and then make whatever budget presentation you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Terry Cobb, Director of the Department of Codes Administration. With me this morning is Roy Jones, who's our Assistant Director of Administrative Services. I'd like to start by thanking the staff at the Codes Department. It's been a really busy year, really busy 2 years for the Codes Department as construction and development in this community has just really taken off. They've done a great job. Special thanks to the key management or top management staff, including Roy Jones and Bill Penn and Bill Herbert and Wade Hill. And then Wade has actually been acting as the acting director of the department as I've been on assignment down here in the mayor's office in development services. So appreciate what they've done. Last year in 2013, we issued building permits valued at $1.7 billion, which makes it the third biggest year in the history of Nashville. And by third biggest year, I mean it's within 6% of the all-time record year. And so I think it's safe to say, whether you look at our permit or revenue numbers, or whether you just drive around and look at the number of tower cranes that are up in the air on our skyline, we're operating at all-time record levels as far as building construction in Nashville and Davidson County. Our revenues from user fees are also at an all-time high. We're projecting this fiscal year's revenues at $11.5 million. And that number is still changing. We started off the year when we made the initial budget presentation, 11.5 I think was our projection at that point. We've actually increased it a little bit since that point, as late as last week. When we make budget submissions as early as February each year, and the year is just unfolding, by the time we get to making final budget decisions for presentation to the Metro Council, our numbers may give us a little bit different picture. We expect that that's a very positive thing this year for us. But bottom line is we do feel comfortable increasing our revenue projections for the next fiscal year budget by at least $1.2 million. That $1.2 million would be an increase on the revenue side. Please keep that in mind when I start addressing the 3% budget reduction. We can do somewhere between 1.2 million and 2 million. That's just a number I don't know yet. It's probably more like 11.5 would be my guess at this point. Expenditures, Rich, this is my 25th budget presentation, if you're keeping records on that. I'm pleased to report that we've continued to be good stewards of the resources entrusted to us. Once again, the Codes Department will live within its budget and actually will not fully spend its operating budget, and we'll be returning some amount of money back to the general fund as we've done in the previous 25 years. One of the basic principles in operating the Codes Department is that we should fully recover our cost of operations related to construction and development from the user fees that we charge for building permits, inspection fees, plan review fees, and such. Pleased to report that those user fees and revenues are well exceeding our operating costs, and that may note that those fees are paid by our customers, who are largely contractors who are pulling building permits, and those fees fully cover our services in such manner that the taxpayers actually aren't asked to fund the Codes Department to the extent that it's related to new construction and development. Additionally, we pay our share of the indirect costs are covered by those same user fees for our share of the legal department, finance department, the HR department, the general overhead of the metro government. One side note I thought I might bring up, I was watching the fire department's budget hearing yesterday, and I think Chief White was asking for an additional inspector or plans examiner for the construction and development side of the fire department or the fire marshal's office. Our building permit fees and plans review fees also cover the operating cost of the fire marshal's office with respect to the construction and development. That's factored in there as well as some other items like a couple of positions, I think, in the planning department are even factored into that. But that's full cost recovery. We're in really good shape along those lines. It's something we take a real hard look at every 3 to 5 years to see what adjustments might be necessary. And I think we went through that exercise a year or two ago with the finance department. The requested budget modification, all metro departments were asked to submit a budget showing a 3% budget reduction. For us, a 3% budget reduction is $216,800. That budget reduction, if that option is chosen, would result in the loss of 3 positions in the codes department. Primarily from our property standards division, which is the non-construction related part of our department. A compliance inspector, a property standards inspector, and a customer service rep. In addition to that, we would propose some additional cuttings in some other operating areas of the department, bearing in mind that somewhere around 94% of the codes department budget is people, cars, and computers, which leaves about 6% to cover everything else. Among those accounts that we would reduce longevity pay in the buyout incentive or retirement incentive that was offered. We had some long tenured employees that elected to take the retirement. That impacts the amount that we need for longevity pay. Aside from the incentive package, there were a number of long-tenured employees in the past few years who have retired from the department. That also has impacted it. In other areas, we have an amount we spend every year on electronic plan review. We're in process of replacing our entire computer system, and with that will be a new electronic plan review system, which actually is a better system and comes at a little lower cost. So we would take some amount of money from that, and postage, I think, is, we're talking odds and ends here, but we continue to try to reduce the amount of money we spend in mailings. The final comment I have this morning is with regard to a project that we will assume in fiscal year 2015, effective July the 1st. The Codes Department will assume the responsibility for alarm registrations. Has been proposed, and we've been working on it for quite a few months now with the Metropolitan Clerk's Office and with the Finance Department to make a budget transition effective July 1st, which means we would be assuming the alarm registration system in the next budget cycle. Mr. Mayor, that's my initial comments. I'd be happy to address any questions y'all might have.
Well, could you describe for the viewing audience what one-stop shopping is, and then tell us about what the turnaround time has been with that? How is that affecting customer service?
Well, we've been talking about one-stop shopping in codes, building and development permits for about 4 decades. And
25 budget. That's before you, yeah.
And it means different things to different people, but the project that we're currently working on, and we appreciate your support, Mayor, in making this happen, is that any permit associated with development or construction could be applied for and processed and issued in one place. So it means a couple of things. We've got to be better connected with computers, as we currently are, but we need to upgrade that. We also need to be co-located with each other. So we have moved the Codes Department Permit Office, the Planning Department Permit Office, the Water Department Permit Office, the Stormwater Permit Office, and the Public Works personnel and process for street closures and sidewalk closures. Anything related to developing land or disturbing land with grading or constructing a building on the land. You can come to one location and process any of those permits that you're seeking, and all of the personnel will be in one place. So you don't start at one place and then have to go upstairs to another department and across the river to another department and back across town to the west end to see another department. And we bring all the department personnel together in one location. And as we're not finished yet. I know Doug Sloan commented on it. We're within 60 days of completion. We're on the final phase of the construction to reload the Metro office building. Actually, this particular phase is the building entrance and the conference room on the first floor. And it's probably the messiest part of the whole thing, because it's the one thing that sort of disrupts everybody as they come and go through the building. But the contractors and project managers, general services have all done a tremendous job coordinating that activity to impact 150 employees in their workspaces, and they've been at it for the past 4 to 5 months, and they've done a beautiful job.
And then part of what's making the one-stop shop work is the switching from Kiva to CityWorks. Is that? Yes, I think that is a major advantage. Whether we did the one-stop shop or not, the old Kiva computer system needed to be replaced. It's a great system. It's one of the best in the country, but it's old, and it had reached and actually exceeded its capacity. That system was purchased 10 years ago, before people really used email to communicate with each other, or before the iPad or iPhone had been invented, before Rich tweeted Greg about anything or sent text messages back and forth, and before the GPS really had developed, and our GIS system had developed. So the CityWorks is a complete replacement of the permit and inspection tracking systems and GIS tracking systems in Metro government. But because we're buying current technology, we're positioning ourselves for the next 10 years rather than just continuing to struggle with 10-year-old technology. Good. And can you talk about the demolition fund, and are there any major demolitions coming up this year?
There are, and I initially made my notes on my comments this morning that we were not asking for any budget enhancements in the next fiscal year. But lo and behold, I discovered one that Roy told me he had placed in there at Bill Penn's request. And we have some 60 or so projects in demolition processing. 23 of them are being bid out now. They're at the purchasing department. That will fully deplete the allotted funds. But we have one huge project that Codes has condemned and the Public Health Department has declared it a public health nuisance. And it's going to be probably, we estimate, a $200,000 demolition project, which is equal to our annual budget.
What is it?
It is a moderately sized apartment complex over on, I believe it's 24th Avenue North. And what complicated it greatly is that the owner of that property, they had a building that burned, and in the process of demolishing that building, he began bringing demolition debris in from off-site. I don't know where he was getting it, and dumping it illegally on his property. And so that, it's unknown the asbestos content or what that material is. So the health department has estimated a significant cost associated with just asbestos removal and such. And it has thrown the number up quite high, but it really is a blight on that community. It's just a couple of blocks from the North Precinct.
Right across the highway.
Across across Clarksville, over on 24th. But that's a $200,000 demolition. There are two ways to address it. One way is to come in for a special allocation near the end of this budget year. Apparently, we made the decision that we would place it as a request in the next fiscal year budget so that we could address our normal amount of demolition plus that project. So that's where I guess the enhancement of the Codes budget that was requested.
Remember the way this would work, after the demolition occurs, the lien is placed on the property for the demolition cost, and then the property could be sold, or whoever buys property buys it subject to that lien.
That's correct. When we place the lien on the property to recover our cost of demolition, then we send a demand letter for payment of that demolition cost, and then it's handed over to the legal department. I think after, if it's not paid within 12 months, I think they begin legal action on that and a number of other, whatever they might have. I don't know the legal term for that, but they send a group of these liens in for collection through the court system.
Okay. And then could you talk about the transferring the alarm permit registrations, and why does that make sense in terms of fitting better in the Codes Department?
Well, I think we've been asked a couple of times over the last few years if we felt we could handle it. And, the short answer is yes. We're set up where customers come in and transact business with us across the counter or do business with us over an internet. In fact, 53% of the permits we sell, we issue around 40,000 permits a year. 53% of them are issued over the internet, and the customer never sets foot in a metro office. And it was felt because of the ability we had from a technology standpoint, we might be able to take this process where we mail the customer a renewal and they mail that back to us with a check. We might be able to automate that over the internet. And we've got the CityWorks contractor working on just that. So yes, we're positioned, we issue permits, we issue licenses, registrations, we do that type thing, and this would just be added into our normal mix of business functions.
Take a burden off the clerk's office.
Codes likes to be sort of a land of customer service. And, the beer board functions, a lot of that are helping them with, and the SOB board and others.
How's the beer board thing gone?
I think it's gone very well. they came, actually, the beer board is simply the neighbor of the coach department. We're not over the beer board. The beer board functions under the board, and they're independent of us completely. What we've been able to do, I think, is move them from some office conditions that were deplorable into a very nice and modernized office space. They now, and I think Jackie's, the beer board's budget hearing might be your next one, but they accept, debit cards and credit cards, and they have upgraded their technology some. We're working with them, with our CityWorks contractor, to get some of their processes better automated or make that available to them. And they've been great neighbors. We're able to maybe give them a little backup or assistance, and they can pitch in and help us from time to time. So it's been good.
Well, thank you for both of you, Roy, too, for having a well-run office, and thank your employees for it. And your revenue numbers are great. We appreciate that, and I personally appreciate you accepting the assignment to be down here in the mayor's office. I think that's a key move in terms of making Nashville an attractive place for people to come and invest and make the community better. So I appreciate all your hard work. It's been noted to me many times in the past months by how well things are going. So I'm really appreciative of that.
Very good.
Greg, you got anything?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.